Alright, this is Canis Rolls Deep. It's my GDQ 2018 submissions for two categories of Donkey Kong Country 2, True Ending and All Stages. This is a joint submission video for two categories because All Stages is essentially the same thing as the True Ending category, plus the rest of the stages that you wouldn't normally play in True Ending. What True Ending means in this game is that you fight the true final form of the final boss, Captain K. Rool, in the Lost World. So doing so has you play 5 levels that you wouldn't normally see in any percent runs. However, if you do that route, there are actually 5 levels that you don't see that are in the any percent route. This is why I came up with the All Stages category, which has you then go complete the rest of the levels that you didn't finish in True Ending. Here we have a in-game cheat that's intended by the developers to get all 75 crumb coins, which is what gives you access to the Lost World so that you can do True Ending. The cheat is allowed for the True Ending category, otherwise you'd have to do all the bonuses, which at that point it would just become the 102% category. But now that we have those creme coins, it's going to be a lot like any percent. Starting with a wrong warp right here. I'm going to convert this beetle into an invisible object, throw it at just the right spot, and complete the level instantly. Now going through developer intended warps. Every level in Worlds 1 and 2 has a secret warp that takes you straight to the end of the level. I believe it's intended for more experienced players who want to get to the harder levels right away. Coming up here is one of the harder wrong warps in the game. You start with a double jump as the snake, which is very precise. Grab this beetle, turn it into an invisible object. Have to do a second try here. And throw it at a very specific spot to summon the immediate exit. This run will not be quite as optimized as my any percent category, as I haven't run it as long. Although the skills from any percent do transfer over pretty cleanly, because 90% the same category, plus 5 new levels. I think this could be a good category. Either this or All Stages could be good for GDQ, in that we will be seeing some levels not normally seen at GDQs. This level has another wrong warp, using the barrel enemy known as a clobber instead of beetles. Turn him invisible, jump up, and warp directly out of the level. So here's where it starts to change from any percent a lot. We first go to Jungle Jinx. This is the first of 5 levels in the Lost World, which are all pretty much all more difficult than any of the any percent levels, using these tire mechanics. It looks like I do accidentally take damage there, which is a small time loss, considering there's a DK barrel pretty soon. Squeezing through that corner between the bee and the tire is pretty hard, even for experienced True Ending runners. We want to swap back to Diddy here. We will be using to set up a cool glitch very soon. We're going to roll into this bee on purpose. It stores a glitch as we shoot out of this cannon, and onto the tire we get a infinitely scrolling right camera that's very fast. taking us straight to the goal very quickly. So since we did that glitch, we go into this next level as Dixie, whereas we'd normally go in as Diddy. Changes the way the level is slightly. But to do this double jump mechanic that is a little bit harder to do as Dixie. But then we simply jump on the goal as Dixie instead of doing a Kong swap that we would normally do. And everything is back on track just like any %. This would be a good time for donations because the next 3 levels are pretty straightforward. We're just going to the developer intended warps, nothing too crazy going on. I really wish I knew about this hidden warp right here as a kid, as this was always my least favorite level. One thing I want to point out that we could do is we could accept true ending as the category that we're going to run. But then tack on the all stages category as an incentive, which would increase the length of the run by about 10 minutes. I just really like the idea of actually completing all of the stages. Always been a little bit critical of the true ending category in that it skips some of the most interesting levels of World 6 in any %. Cleaver here is a pretty risky boss, has a trick called Lava Fly coming up. It involves hovering over this long pit of lava, which you are not intended to be able to hover over, but by using a buffer jump on that corner there, you can jump on the corner that would normally just send you plummeting to your death. Ooh, took damage there, forgot about that. So, the main drawback with that is that when you beat a boss, you're going to play a guitar solo or a beatbox solo, I guess, as Diddy. And the beatbox is a little bit longer than Dixie's guitar solo. So about 2 seconds lost for taking damage there. Not a huge deal. As with any %, the run really starts to pick up in World 3 here, as there are no longer developer intended warps and each level has to be played entirely. So even though I don't have Dixie, I skipped that DK barrel there because getting a backup DK barrel in the air, as I just did, has less delay than actually picking up a barrel and throwing it. Here we get to use Rambi for a little while, but not too long, as that sign prevents us from going forward. And this team throw sets up a glitch. Next time I take damage, I'm gonna get a lot of extra height. So take damage intentionally on that guy and hold Y, and Dixie will hover all the way across that gap. Glimmer's Galleon here is a swimming level that's pretty nitpicky. Every single corner or wall that you hit in this level costs a second or 2. So you want to try to keep your momentum entirely by not hitting any walls or corners. It takes quite a bit of practice. So far so good. Okay, so I had to slow down a little bit to avoid taking damage from the eel. I came in too low, did an extra pedal, then ended up too high. Better to just take your time than get hit in this level though, because swimming around these corners as Diddy is a lot harder Dixie because Diddy's hitbox is bigger. Good corners at the end there. So coming up here is the newest wrong warp in the game. Discovered after the past time this game was at a GDQ event. Skipping the second half of this level. Very strange setup though, very unique. Essentially what we're going to do is sacrifice Dixie to this enemy called a Cutlass. And during the Cutlass's animation after hitting her, there's a precise number of frames that we want to jump in that barrel, which for some reason ends the level. Coming into Rattle Battle here. Notorious for its terrible hitboxes. The snake was not very well programmed IMO for horizontal movement. Given that he has high jumps, it would make sense that this character is in a level that's all about vertical movement, but for some reason they decided to put him in a level that's all about horizontal movement. But with practice, this level pretty much becomes an auto-scroller. Hold right and jump at the right time. So coming up now is without a doubt the most difficult level in True Ending. A Lost World level called Black Ice Battle. And actually what makes this difficult is you're constantly wiggling around in bees and very tight corners. Super easy to take damage, and the penalty for taking damage is pretty high. So far so good. Lots of rolling and wiggling during the rolls. And unfortunately it looks like I got hit by the very last bee that could have hurt me. The rest of the obstacles aren't too hard. So what that means is, before we can go into the next level, we actually have to get another DK barrel. Because 2 Kongs are required to do the glitch. That gets us through the next level. So approximately 12 seconds lost to the damage in Black Ice Battle, unfortunately. But it's definitely something that could be cleaned up rather easily, as this is a relatively new category. I have specialized in any percent. Any level in the Lost World is a little bit new. But given my any percent experience, I can definitely get them down very good by the time GDQ rolls around. So as you saw, I did a wrong warp to the last level. And now we enter the barrel maze. Trying to get as many quick shots, as we call them, which is essentially when we want to shoot out of a barrel before it starts to spin. So right here, I wanted to shoot while those barrels were facing the default direction, or else I'd have to wait for them to spin around a whole bunch. And the quick shots have pretty precise timing. I think it's about 3-frame window. And then coming up is a trick called Vine Clip. I'm gonna team throw, and as the Kong that I threw is rebounding back at me, I get an extra high jump. And with that height, you can clip through a tiny portion of the vines, completing the level. This boss here would be a great time for donations. It's not a whole lot to talk about other than the fact that I'm doing quick hits by hitting him as soon as he's vulnerable. The way to do that is to stand in a particular spot, count Dixie's breathing animation, and use that as a cue for when to move, such that the boss falls facing left, but you get just to the right side of him as he lands. From there, all you have to do is release Y, and Dixie will sort of wind up to throw forward, but in doing so, the hitbox for the explosive barrel goes backwards just a tiny bit to hit him. I should point out that it's pretty likely that the speedrunner Void will also submit True Ending, as well as any percent, and I believe we would both be interested in racing each other if the opportunity arose. World 4 here is probably the hardest world in the game. It has 2 auto-scrollers, but the rest of the levels are extremely difficult, including the Lost World level contained. Hornet Hole is definitely harder than it looks, as climbing up this honey is pretty difficult. If you don't press the B button at just the right time, you will not be able to scale that honey nearly as fast. Grabbing the spider here, not because he himself is faster, but because the spider helps set up a glitch. By jumping off the spider onto this hook, it sets up a camera scrolling motion, kind of like that first Lost World level, Jungle Jinx. And we essentially surf the camera to the right. The damage taken was intentional to cancel the glitch, otherwise I wouldn't be able to continue left again. Then Target Terror, probably the simplest auto-scroller. About a minute and a half of perfect donation opportunity. All you gotta do is hit the checkmark barrels and avoid the X barrels. And of course grab the swag balloon at the end of the level, which is just a trick that doesn't actually save time, but looks cool. So right about now, the True Ending category would be about halfway over. We're just about 18 minutes into the run, and an optimal True Ending is about, I think, 38 minutes. No, actually 37 or 36 even would be good. I think this run ends up being a very low 38 True Ending time. So it's actually one of the first True Ending runs I ever did. But again, the any percent experience makes the vast majority of these levels very familiar. And if accepted to GDQ, it would have to work a bit harder at polishing off the 5 Lost World levels, but it shouldn't be a problem at all. There's the swag balloon. Mandatory trick to get and run. The next is the Bramble Scramble Wrong Warp. Skipping about a minute of one of the hardest levels in the game. Just have to climb this rope in a very particular way. turn invincible and take this beetle. Use the corner there to glitch the game out and get an invisible object and throw it. And voila! We're out of the level. And that immediately is followed by another auto-scroller, slightly more difficult than Target Tower. This one, by holding left, you find a developer-intended trick that lets you go through the level twice as fast. It is not required to win the race, so to speak, in this level. But of course, if you're having an optimal level, you're going to end up beating them anyway. You do have to be careful not to bonk into the back of the enemy carts, as doing so will usually result in the rhythm of the entire level getting messed up, and you'll sometimes get knocked into a pit as a result of that. Coming up now is going to be Mudhole Marsh, probably the hardest level in the game. That or Webwoods. Actually, Black Ice Battle in this category would definitely be the hardest, but in any percent, this is one of the hardest levels. Basically, what we're going to do is some really scary rolls. It looked like I'm going to die. I go underwater, but that's just to maintain rolling speed. What we're going to do what's called gap rolls. You have to roll just from the edge of certain platforms in order to cross the pit between them. You're rolling underneath midway, probably the riskiest thing in the whole level, if not all of World 4. I'm going to try to manipulate the camera to get this cannonball, or cannon, to spawn later. Then we're going to use the cannonball to trigger a wrong warp. Now we go to another Lost World level. This one is fairly straightforward except for one cool trick at the end that saves a lot of time. One issue I have with this level is that there's simply no way to really have continuous rolling. Because of all the clobbers that you have to jump on, the optimal movement doesn't look so slick. Like, you still are pretty much just jumping a lot instead of rolling. And of course, rolling is faster in this game than jumping. That first half of the level is pretty easy. It's sort of like a mini auto-scroller, so we're going to use a damage boost to get through it pretty quickly. So we're just going to shoot here, land there, and bam. So here comes the cool part of this level. I'm going to do a glitch here, somewhat precise, that gets an invisible object. Right here, we throw it, and what that does is it corrupts the barrel that I'm in right now, such that whenever I decide to shoot up and right, I'm going to get way more distance than it would normally get. So here goes, boom. That right there saves like a minute or two. Well, not quite that much, but it's a lot of time. Somewhat risky jumps to get past those guys, as if they touch you at all, you'll probably get knocked into the spikes. Yeah, as far as Lost World levels go, that was definitely the best one in the run so far. The other two definitely had some small mistakes in them. Fortunately, one of those mistakes was pretty costly in Black Ice Battle. I think the rest of this run goes pretty close to flawless. Comes the Rhino section, which is pretty easy to survive not so easy to optimize. Essentially, trying to start the charges as soon as possible. And coming up on King Zing. Boss that you definitely don't want to sleep on. He has a very tiny hitbox that you want to try to hit. But as long as you do the fight the same way every time, then you can pretty much know exactly where you need to shoot without even really looking at the bee. Oops, missed a hit there. So that's what happens when you shoot a little bit too early. He wasn't quite done being invulnerable yet. And that's World 4. So in any percent there'd be 2 more worlds, 5 and 6. But in true ending, this is basically the final world, because at the very beginning of World 6 we're going to go to the final Lost World level and finish true ending. Which means, again, in true ending you would skip most of World 6, which I think is one of the best worlds in the game, so that's why I like the idea of the all stages category. World 5 is the most likely world to die in, as it's full of pits everywhere. But it has a great vibe to it, and a pretty cool glitch that you'll be seeing a little bit later. Also, one of the newer glitches in the game that's quite similar to the one seen in Crockhead Clamber. Here's the final auto-scroller of true ending. So there would be one more in all stages. One is definitely the most technical auto-scroller of the game, as every single little jump that I do is carefully planned out to save frames. The cart doesn't exactly follow normal physics, so just because you're going downhill doesn't mean it's going faster. Just because you're going uphill doesn't necessarily mean you're going slower. So basically the cart just kind of slows down and speeds up whenever it wants to. So we use jumps to basically maintain a more neutral speed whenever it would be going slow. So the next 3 levels are, well, actually four levels now, are ramping up in difficulty. Sort of the gauntlet of World 5, and definitely one of the most scary parts of any category. This level's mostly just difficult because of the pits everywhere. Particularly this pillar section here, there's a little pit between each one, so it's a lot of opportunities to make just a little tiny mistake that ends up killing you. And of course the wind mechanic makes it a little challenging at first, but It is very predictable based on your X position. So eventually, you don't even have to think about the wind. You just know when you need to roll and jump automatically. Yeah, some people seem to think that, you know, the wind is just random and it's going to keep going back and forth whenever it wants to, but it's not like that. It's totally based on your position. Now is Parachute Panic. One of the most pleasing levels to watch as well as play, because it's like, I think some levels in Mega Man or Battletoads even, where you're just falling at very fast speeds. You need to be able to dodge things that are coming from beneath you very quickly. But once you have it memorized, it's not too bad. There we take damage on purpose, giving us invincibility frames to pass through a final set of bees. So coming up here is the glitch that I was talking about, making this level kind of ridiculous almost, but still cool to see. So normally this is about a minute and a half level, but this is what it has become. And that's it. So yeah, we found that glitch less than a year ago, and it's really surprising that you could do that. But at first, it only really mattered for the true ending category. But soon after, we realized that that same mechanic could do the wrong warp and crockhead clamber, which is a very important level in the any % category. So it's actually a really good find. I think this is definitely one of the hardest levels, and most people would agree. The spider is very difficult to control. You're simultaneously controlling where you move, the projectiles that you're shooting at enemies to clear a path, and creating these platforms underneath you all at once. Taking damage boosts on purpose to get a little bit more distance. Whenever you take damage, you can get a jump out of the damage, allowing you to clear sections that would normally require basically standing still and shooting projectiles for a while. Another damage boost coming up right here as an example. We land on that bee, jump, continue forward. That section is probably 10 seconds slower without the damage boost. But with the completion of Web Woods, true ending category is almost over. Boss is pretty difficult to optimize because of the ropes that we have to climb. Rope climbing in general in this game is one of the harder mechanics. And if you make a mistake, there's a good chance you'll get hit by one of those eggs. Throughout this fight, the barrels can spawn in 3 locations, and you will need to practice your reaction to each of the 3 spawn locations. So World 6 here, we start with Arctic Abyss, but after that we unlock the next Lost World level, which is the path to the end of True Ending. So anything in World 6 after this level is skipped in the True Ending category. Fish movement in this level is very hard to do. Basically, whenever you're sort of zigzagging and changing directions, It's not really an intuitive control. You can't just press the opposite direction and lunge at the same time. You sort of need to scatter those inputs. Change directions first and then do your lunge. And if you're trying to lunge as fast as possible, it can be hard to time that right. So now on to Animal Antics, the level that completely ruined my childhood. First half of this level is pretty straightforward. You have a rhino section, which you can probably do blind, and an end guard section, the fish, which is pretty easy as well. And the second half of this level is pretty devious. Here, basically clearing most of the fish section with just 2 lunges. That's pretty much it for the fish. Now we become the spider, and we all know the spider is very difficult to control. As with all spider parts of the game, we're going to do some damage boosting. And this section right here is pretty difficult. But we got it. And now they were evil enough to put the spider in a section full of brambles. And then we soon switch to the bird, Squawks. We'll be flying with wind. Not a nice combination. But with some practice and some intentional damage boosting here for iframes, it is not too bad. Definitely one of the scariest parts of the level, though. And finally, we get to play as Rattly the Snake. And here's where we'll start to see the double jump mechanic. Do a double jump right there to make that section much easier. And bam, that's pretty much it. Just gotta make sure we don't shoot into those bees, and that's Animal Antics for you. Which unlocks the true form of the final boss. And once he is defeated, that will be the end of True Ending. So while I would prefer that all stages is the accepted category, it would still be really nice just to have True Ending at GDQ. Simply for the novelty factor. Never seen before category at a GDQ, and it contains some levels that are not often seen for anyone who follows any percent. I gotta say, you guys want to accept anything, I would definitely prefer the any percent category. But this boss is pretty much an auto-scroller. You just have to dodge his attacks. And once the DK coin falls on Dixie, that's the end of True Ending. That would be dot time for True Ending. But for all stages, the run continues. What we have to do here is wait for the cranky cutscene coming up right here to finish, at which point the game automatically saves. Then I can reset the game and go finish up all the stages that have not been completed yet. Which are some really good stages, IMO. So as soon as this cutscene is over, the game will save, and we shall continue. It's not very long, but it'd be a good time for donations. I think it's a little less than a minute of downtime here. So right here, just reset, and continue off right where we stopped. So that puts us right here, and we just have to continue the rest of the any percent route. Something kind of funny happens right here. Sometimes you try to roll through that beetle, he likes to just rebound you right off into the pit. So I have to be careful of that. Since the recording of this video, I've practiced and figured out how to consistently not do that. Switching to Dixie here, as she is preferable in this level if you were to not use the trick used in any percent, which you actually can't do in this category, given that you enter the level as solo Diddy every time. You need 2 Kongs to do the any percent strats. Doing an intentional damage boost here. And now for Ghetto Bees. Means we swoop under 2 bees in one motion. Just barely missing the hitboxes on the bees. Coming up here is that final auto-scroller I mentioned earlier, but it's still a pretty entertaining level for the audience, in that it has probably the zaniest glitch in the game. But for the first minute of this level would be a good time for donations. Need to keep this barrel all throughout. It's also mandatory that you enter the level with 2 monkeys. Here's where the magic happens. I'm going to use this barrel here to totally glitch out the game. I'm going to take damage on purpose, and that will summon the goalpost. Papper's Cavern is a nice, relaxing level, sorta. Right before the hardest parts of the game. Well, they feel like the hardest part when you're on a good run, because that's when nervousness really kicks in and it's easy to make mistakes. But this level is not too bad. Very, very brief fish section here. We dismount the fish before the signpost, as going through the signpost causes a half-second animation of the fish exploding. Or fish. Here we throw Dixie into an invisible invincibility barrel, giving Diddy just enough invincibility time to get to the end of the level. And Chain Link Chamber is the final level with the Rung Warp. Pretty unique in its setup. We're going to use a cannonball and a clobber, that's the barrel enemy, to turn the clobber into an invisible object which summons a cannon. Oop, video's lagging. It summons a cannon, then you go into the cannon and it shoots you out of the level. And Toxic Tower, definitely my favorite level. Involves a lot of double jumps as the snake. There's actually two different kinds of double jumps used here. There's a shorter kind of double jump, which doesn't get as much height, and there's that, is the true double jump, giving you a lot of height. They are both actually two very different techniques, both of which have to be mastered for optimal times in this level. That was a good snake section, actually. And here comes the bird section. Definitely requires some precision, some fast mashing. Taking damage on purpose there. It's the quickest way to get through that section. Doing a little camera manipulation to skip a B cycle there. That was actually not in my any % PB. And then the laughably easy spider section. I don't know if that was just a joke from the developers or they thought that would be hard. That's World 6 for you. So at this point we've completed every single stage in the game, except for 2 more levels, including a boss. There may be a donation incentive to do a trick called the jump in this level. A very scary trick you will not be seeing in this video, but it would happen in this section right here on those ropes. And it's sort of a community favorite strat that a lot of people will sort of dare you to do because of how silly it is. Silly difficult. Flying over the blackbird there skips the racing sequence, which keeps everybody's favorite song playing. We do hope that we get the race skip in a GDQ run. Though I kind of like the music that plays when you race the blackbird. Just trying to cut these corners tight. Skip right through the B ring, not a problem. Mash as fast as you can. And that's that level. And then the final boss is same as always, basically a glorified cutscene. The only piece of tech that can happen in this level is you want to throw the cannonballs into his blunderbuss as soon as he becomes vulnerable. So this remains my PB for True Ending / all stages. I haven't done too many runs of it, but I do believe that I could take the time on both of these down by about a minute pretty easily, or to put some more time into it. Just any % category has always been my main incentive. Simply a matter of getting a little better at the Lost World levels. Pretty much all the mistakes in this run were in the first 3 worlds, but I'm pretty happy with the entire second half of this run, aside from the whole Windy Well beetle thing, but we won't even mention that. Yeah, but yeah, I do hope the committee seriously considers adding these categories to the lineup. It would really be a pleasure to run these, and thank you for your consideration regardless. It'd be really cool if we were to get a race going of True Ending or any %. Me, myself, Void, and anyone else who decides to submit with a good time. Point out that our leaderboards for Donkey Kong Country games are not on speedrun.com. They can be found at DKC speedruns.com. There you will find at the moment I am sitting at 4th place for any percent, 3rd place for true ending, and 1st place for all stages, but that's because nobody else really runs all stages. And again, all stages is basically just a combination of true ending and any percent, which I like for the sense of completion that you get from it. True ending to me always just felt kind of weird that you skipped some of the most interesting and important levels in the game at the end. And time for all stages will come very soon. And done. That's all stages for you. That's about a 50-minute run compared to 40 minutes for an any percent run and roughly 37-38 minutes for a true ending run. I do hope you enjoy the run and consider adding this to the GDQ lineup. Thanks for watching.